Good morning, and welcome to Our Neutral Voices Presents a Financial Pillar, where we educate and bring awareness to the financial foundations of our lives. I'm your host, Ryan Leopard, and today is the second episode in our financial literacy series, and we're going to touch on, our banking system today, and hopefully bring some understanding and answer some questions that the panel may have for us. My guest joining me today, my friend from DR Financial, Chris Hanna.
Good morning again.
And from Our Neutral Voices, James Scott.
Mr. Ryan, how are you?
I'm excellent. And Mildred Lopez.
Good morning. Good
morning. So, I was watching one of the Neutral Voices shows last night. James, what was the name of that?
Last night's show is
yes.
In the Know.
In the Know. That's what it was. Okay, so I stole a little bit of something from that, but pretty big weekend coming up this weekend, and for Mother's Day, right? So shout out to all the mothers out there. But the thing I stole from that last night, the show, so I don't want to take credit for it, is, does anybody know where Mother's Day originated from? I'm going to take that as
You're throwing a question at us.
I'm going to throw a question at you. Yes.
Well, what we learned last night is that it originated from a young lady that lost her mom.
Mm-hmm.
And so as she began to want to celebrate her own mom, she decided to just celebrate all moms.
Yes.
Is what we learned last night.
Yes. And that lady's name was Anna Jarvis. I believe it became a national holiday in 1914.
Correct.
Right? So,
Correct.
That being
That's
said.
crazy to me. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Because you're a mother once you give birth. 1914, that just seems like, wow, we weren't esteemed in just the time period. Don't mind me. I'm
So
sorry.
you're saying it should have been from the beginning. Of time?
Hello.
Yeah.
My first guess
Eve.
was
in the
Eve.
beginning of
If you would ask,
Genesis.
if you would ask me, it'd been Eve. I would have thought it'd been Eve for Mother's
I agree.
Day. But
Thank you.
Yes. Well, we
Should have been, right?
right.
we did correct the errors of our ways at one point in time.
God.
Right? It was 1914. So thank
Wow.
you for that.
Well, we're only human, so
Right.
we have to remember that.
Okay.
a few thousand years, give or take.
Time.
So, anybody have plans for Mother's Day?
Me personally, man, I'm gonna love on my mom.
Mm-hmm.
I spend time with her, sit down, look at her, listen to her talk, smile, laugh, just love on her.
Yes.
All day.
Awesome. Taking her anywhere? Just going to the house?
My mom is a homebody, so definitely I'm gonna be sitting there looking at her at the kitchen table. She'll have her little glass of Hennessy, a cognac, and be sipping and
Sitting back and relaxing.
man,
Kicking her feet up,
it's a
right?
beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Hearing your mom laugh, the laughter of your mom, man, priceless.
Good stuff there.
Priceless.
So, Chris, anything?
Yeah, go out to lunch with my mom and pops, have time with them, and then my wife's going on a business trip on Sunday afternoon, leaving at 1. So I got to figure out how to
Fit
get
that
Mother's
in.
Day with her figured out still.
Gotcha. Mildred?
No plans. I lost my mom 21 years ago, so I'm hoping my kids do something for me, the ones that are here. But
Yes.
I'm a mom every day, and I tell my kids, show me respect and love every day, not just one day a year. So
Absolutely.
why wait
Every day should be
one
Mother's Day,
Exactly.
right.
I'm a mother every day, so I try to teach that to my kids.
Yeah. Well, from us here on the set, happy Mother's Day.
Tink you.
You're welcome.
Amen.
Bless her.
Myself, just have plans with my wife, the kids, and take her to the Tin Caps game. And then at some point in time, we're big Marvel fans, and the new Guardians of the Galaxy came out. So I'll try and fit that in as well, because we love that as a family too. So looking forward to this week. And unfortunately, she has to work on Saturday for it. But coming from there, this is once again our second episode. Last episode, we touched on financial literacy and what does that mean. So I just want to take a second before we dive into today's topic to kind of reflect and, how do we think that first episode went? Did you hear anything from your peers out there?
I did. Both good and bad, because they don't understand. And when even the Bible talks about people perish for the lack of knowledge. So having people's mindset change, especially for people who are already set in their ways. So, trying to just encourage them to keep watching so they can be educated is really important to me. So just outweighing the good and the bad. Like my co-pastor says, take it with a grain of salt, eat the meat, throw away the bones. So I think it's important, banking, finance, period. So I'm enjoying it. So I appreciate the feedback.
Absolutely. I appreciate the feedback as well. And just to touch on what you said there, obviously a mindset is something that's been instilled for a long, long time. We're not going to change it in one episode. We're not going to change it in 2, 3, or 4 episodes, right? So that's the point, is to kind of just start getting that information out there. And also why it's important to encourage, our listeners out there to give that feedback, whether it be through, email, or when we get a lineup to call in, we'd love to talk with them as well to help bring some understanding to them, because I know we're not going to do it in the 30 minutes that we have here.
Right.
This is just the start.
Right.
Yep.
Correct.
Yep. James, anything that you're hearing out there?
A lot of good feedback. The most important thing I got is that people were just happy to know that we're here and we're starting this process. That was the most important thing. But one of the most relevant things is a lot of people just understood that we were just introducing the set, and that we were actually just introducing ourselves to our viewing audience. So a lot of people appreciate where we are, where we're headed, and they're looking forward to more. That's what I heard mostly.
Awesome.
Oh, and forgot, they love you.
Did they? Wow.
You got some serious fans already, I'm telling you.
All right. I'll be signing autographs at some point. Chris?
Yeah, I heard it's a great base and foundation, and I think people are excited to hear about the topics that are coming up. They're ready for that next kind of deep dive and hear that discussion. So it'll be exciting.
Awesome. So, some feedback that I got from a peer of mine at work was 2 things. One, the skunk thing, right? The smell?
Yeah.
It's genetics. Don't blame me.
Oh, wow.
It's genetic, right? I don't know if any of you like cilantro, but I knew this. I didn't know about the skunk thing, but I love cilantro. It goes on everything for me. But I've also heard people, cilantro, it's gross, right? How could it be gross? Well, to those people, a lot of times it tastes like soap, right? If you haven't heard that, look that up.
Wow.
So, genetically, we smell things differently. Genetically, we taste things differently. So I cannot be blamed. It's my genetics. And also, there's a fan page out there for those that love skunk smell, so I'm not alone.
Here.
Okay. And also, those that do like the smell do not like it when they're up close and personal with one.
Wow.
Right? So it is a difference. You can smell from miles away.
Sound like clarification.
Clarification, yes, I'm
That's
not
what it
abnormal. There are quite a few of us out there. But on a more serious note there, I got great feedback for the show. I heard the opposite. They loved you, James. Right? I did good, but you were the man that stood out.
Teamwork.
And also, they was brought up the information, right? Not a whole lot of information out there. That was the main point. This was just the introduction. We wanted to talk about financial literacy and what does that mean, so we get an understanding that will take us into these other topics. So there will be more information, hopefully starting today with the banking that will be pertinent to our listening audience out there. So, good segue into our topic today, banking. Okay. Hope to bring some understanding and some ideas of how we can wisely use our banking system. So, quote unquote, me being the resident banking expert. Okay. Once again, these are just my opinions and my opinions only, and do not reflect those opinions of my employer. Like you guys to just shoot me some questions. What are some questions that we have about the banking system? Maybe some misunderstandings, trust issues, things like that with our target audience that we just want to know.
So you just said trust issues. One of the things that I've heard is why is it so hard for our community to open a bank account? We talked off air how hard it was for me to open an account. I had to open one as a student because my credit score wasn't up to par. So what do you have to say about how the banks use our credit scores to open accounts?
James, real quick.
And before you answer that, she said our community. What is our community? Who was the our?
Brown, Black community.
Okay.
Okay.
So,
We want to make clear.
my experience, I worked in the retail banking industry for about 11 years, and I want to kind of stay away from naming banks specifically, but one of the larger banks in the country here. So I got a lot of experience with that. In my experience there, I never turned anybody away ever for not being able to open a bank account. Now, yes, it is true that when a bank opens a bank account, there is what they call like a check systems check, which kind of looks at past banking history, bad checks, charge-off accounts, things like that. And then there is a soft pull on the credit. It's not a hard pull where it affects your inquiries and that type of stuff, but it is that. The credit score typically does not play a factor in that. It's a matter of it's looking to see if there's other charge-off collections and things like that, okay? Now, that being said, typically, if I was not able to open a bank account for somebody, it was because they owed money to the bank I worked for. They had a bad account before, right? And most times, if they were able to pay off that bad account that day, we were able to open the new account for them. Now, there's different levels of accounts, right? There was what we call, I can't remember the name of it, but it was kind of a second chance account, right? So there were some limitations on the account where it didn't allow you to write checks. When it came to your debit card, it didn't allow you to overdraw the account. There were things put in place to help keep from that type of situation that led them to the charge-off account before from happening again. Okay. Now, yes, a lot of times those accounts it did have a monthly fee on it, right? There weren't ways to waive that fee like there are with traditional accounts, like from a direct deposit or a number of debit card uses or something like that. But obviously, I can't speak for all banks or every experience. I know we had the off-camera conversation about that. I would really love to, have gone in or go in with you to that same bank and see if you got the same answer.
Oh, my
right?
credit score much better now.
Well, there you go. Yes. But there's all sorts of options out there. We talked about the pay cards, the time cards, things like that people utilize, but having a safe place for that. But my experience, once again, is I never turned anybody away from opening an account unless they had a bad account with the bank they were trying to get the new account from. And if they were able to settle that account or make payment arrangements to make that good, we were able to open some sort of an account for them.
I have a question on that.
Yes.
On that second chance account, would the bank at some point come back to that person and say, hey, we can move you up to a more normal account? Or how long can somebody wait and go to their bank and say, hey, I've had this account for 6 months or a year.
Yes,
I've done my responsibilities. Can I now move up to this where maybe that account doesn't have a fee? I didn't know if the bank does that or if you should as a person.
There was no specific answer to that, but yes, that was possible. So there was no set time frame, 6 months, a year, whatever the case may be. But that person could come back to us after a period of time. Typically, when we're talking about trying to correct things, right? Credit or pay off, charged off accounts, things like that. We do it today. It takes months for those things to get corrected in the system, for them to fall off, for us to show a good history now. So 6 months, a year, we'd encourage you to come back to us, and we'll see if we can, convert it into a traditional account where maybe, yes, if you are working, you have a direct deposit, we can now keep your account free, right? Rather than you paying that monthly fee for it. But a lot of times when it comes into, even with that fee, it was still beneficial for them to have that account because the alternative is, in today's world, a lot of people don't accept cash. They have to have a way to pay, whether it be through online banking or through being able to get cashier's checks or things like that for it. They're paying money elsewhere to do that. A lot of times you can get those with your accounts at the bank that you bank with, right? So that fee saved them money in the long run doing things a different way of trying to get money to where they need to go.
So since we started with literacy and now we're speaking about banking, why is it so important for us to know about the banking system, or how does that work?
I think it's important to know about the banking industry just to get an understanding of it. Because I think when we talk about trust with anything, whether it be banking industry or anything, it just comes from a place of misunderstanding.
Yes.
Right? We just don't understand what's going on. We assume that the negative is happening, right? So when somebody sees a fee on their account, how many times I've heard the bank's taking my money, right? Without understanding why that fee's there and accepting responsibility for why that fee happened, right? So I think it just really comes down to understanding, which is what I hope to get across with this specific topic, is bring some understanding of, the bank's responsibility and then the customer's responsibility on there, right?
So what's the difference between credit unions and banks? So a lot of times, because it's hard for us to as a community to open a bank account, or they don't have that trust with banks. Fort Wayne is like the city of churches, and to me, banks, there's a bank everywhere. So how do we tell the difference of how we can use the banks for our benefit?
So if I'm understanding the question right there, the first one was credit union and bank, right? A bank is basically owned by, a corporation or individual, something like that. The credit union is owned by its members, right? I hear this all the time when it comes to like credit unions. Oh, my credit union doesn't charge fees. All banks and credit unions charge fees. You just may not be realizing it because you're meeting whatever qualifications that take to waive those fees, or you're managing the account properly that you don't see the other fees there. One of the other bigger differences is I believe the insurance on there, which we were going to dive into. I think it's a great time to bring it up, is FDIC insurance coverage. So for those that don't know, FDIC is the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, which is an independent agency that created by the Congress to maintain stability and public confidence in the nation's financial system. Banks are governed by the FDIC. Okay. So this is very valuable in today's world with the news and banks
Closing,
failing,
yes.
right? And the big scare is people are losing their money, right? I don't trust banks because if they fail, I lose my money. Well, your money is insured. And without getting into specific numbers and things like that, it's up to a certain number, right, that your money is insured. So the people above that, which are rich people problems, right, they're the ones that could potentially lose. But overall, as we're seeing now, FDIC insurance typically never kicks in, right? The federal government finds another bank to come in and buy out or bail out the existing bank, which we just saw with, I believe it was First Republic, and Chase Bank came in and bought them out. The other bank that initially crashed, Silicon Valley. I can't remember the bank that bought them out. But initial reports, all these fears, we're all losing our money. No, the people that really need that money, it's insured. The people above that, right, they didn't end up losing money either because these other banks coming and bailing them out. So FDIC is an insurance. It makes us feel good that our banks are covered by that. But at the end of the day, they typically never comes to that, right? The other argument I've had recently with people is, well, the federal government, that's our tax money, right? We're bailing these banks out. No, they're finding somebody else to come in and buy these. And at the end of the day, FDI insurance, and this was great through this because I just found this information out, but it's not funded by the federal government. It's funded by the participating banking institutions, right? So my guess is that to be a part of the FDIC insurance coverage, to offer that comfortability to your customers, you are contributing money on a periodic basis to that fund, right? So this is not the federal government and our tax money that's going to these failed banks to cover our funds or our losses,
Right.
right?
So can
Now,
I
going back,
address that in layman's terms?
Sure,
So that
go
people
ahead.
can really understand. So in other words, it's safer to have your money in a banking account inside the bank or deal with the bank as opposed to the shoebox
Or the
or under
mattress.
the mattress or in the house, because if the house catches on fire or if it's stolen from the house, then it's just gone.
Absolutely.
You've just lost. It's called liquid cash, right?
Yep.
So
if you lose it, it's gone.
Understanding the sense of security is what we really should emphasize when it comes to the reason why I should put my money in the bank. And not saying all of it, you don't have to do that. But man, it's insane to have $100,000 under the mattress or in a box, and there's no coverage if something happens that you can't sustain or control.
Yeah. And that's not even adding into the risk to your own personal safety and security if somebody finds out you have that $100,000 in your house, right?
It's
Yeah.
crazy that there's people like that,
There are, and
he says it fun, but it's a serious thing that there's people that have money in their mattress, in the shoebox, because of the lack of trust with the banks. Why is it important for us? You mentioned it before, to pay for things. But like James said, that security, especially our older community, our older generation that have retired from these big companies, GM, ITT, and now they're living off of a pension, fixed income. But they're scared to put their money in the bank because so many banks are failing. How could we continue to teach others to trust the banks? How do we do that?
Well, first, like I said, it would be to understand what their fear is. Okay. Is the fear that the bank's going to collapse? Because I think we just answered that, right? With the FDIC insurance company, if those individuals don't have that understanding that their money is insured in the bank, or what is the fear? Is the fear that my bank account's going to get hacked, right? Because fraud is very real in today's world. Or is the fear that, well, the bank's taking my money through all these fees, right? So I think it all depends on the mindset of the person that has that fear. What is their fear?
And their
right?
knowledge.
And their knowledge, yes, of that. Real quick, I want to go back because I don't want to be unfair to the credit unions. We talked on the FDIC insurance. Credit unions are insured, just through a different insurance program, which I don't have that information here. But I want to be fair to credit unions out there as well. They do have their own insurance. They're just not governed by the FDIC insurance coverage.
And I wanted to add in, if going back to James's $100,000 example, I try to encourage people to meet with people like me that can help people save for retirement and or save in retirement, because there's definitely other investments that are kind of outside the banking industry that can be protected. And so if you're talking about those kind of numbers or any numbers that you're trying to save for your future, there's other people out there and in other industries that can help out with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And going back to that, like that's a mindset of a lot of people, right? Not just an impoverished mindset with that. Being at the bank, how many times, bad news comes up and, people are running in there and pulling, thousands and thousands of dollars out in cash. And, as the banker, I can only express so much, right? But it's what they want to do. And at the end of the day, the risk behind that is just, to me, ridiculous. You could walk right out this door. It happens, right? And somebody sees you getting this money, and next thing you know, you don't have this money. Your bank is your money is more secure in the bank, right? But we have all this news, and that's ultimately, to my knowledge, one of the biggest things that led to the failure of the Silicon Valley Bank is that there was some bad news going around that led to fear, and the fear is what made the bank collapse, because people were coming in and taking out that money in large sums, right? They had some questionable things that they probably could have dealt with and probably could have gotten past had that fear not kicked in and made those deposits go away.
Wow.
Right? Yes.
So how do we pick with so many banks and so much? How do we know which bank to put our money in? In Fort Wayne, I believe there's only one bank that is from Fort Wayne. All the other ones are pretty big. And there's 28 credit unions headquartered here. So how do we pick? It feels like a buffet.
Correct.
And you try to figure out, okay, how much interest can I gain if I open a savings and checking account? What are the fees? So a lot of times we don't prepare. So can you help us out kind of determining where to put my money at?
That's a great question. And that answer is going to be different for everybody.
Yep.
My best advice would encourage you to check out a few different banks and see which one best fits your needs. So, for example, when we're going back and talking about, I go to one bank, and if I have a direct deposit there, the account's free. I don't have to pay a fee. Well, what happens to those that don't have a direct deposit?
Right.
Right? Some of us don't. Most of us do, but some of us don't. You can either choose to pay the fee, or you can search out another bank, which I know some of them out there. There's actually, if you use your debit card 5 times a month, the account's free, right? You don't know that unless you shop around. You find the best bank for you. Some of us are perfectly fine with a bank right here in our own community because we don't go very far. But that's the advantage of some of the bigger banks too, is they offer branches throughout the country. So if you travel more, if you're somebody that's out there and you need access to the banks, right, that might be the best bank for you. So there's not just one answer to that. The best advice I would give you is shop around, find the best bank for you.
Okay.
Right.
And are local banks better than
Good question.
big name brand banks?
Once again, I think that goes back to the answer I just provided, which was what is best for you,
the individual.
right? Yeah. Local. When I worked for one of the larger banks here, we overcame that objection. Well, I like my local bank. Well, we are local too. Everybody that works in here is from our community, right? We give you that hometown feeling, but we also give you the strength of the bigger bank. We give you the reach. I can also see some differences now working for a smaller local bank, also advantages there too. So once again, it's each person has their own.
So I know to go from a corporate bank, a large bank, a lot of times, man, you have to go through so many loops and hoops in order to get something accomplished, even if it's just a small loan. The huge difference with dealing with a smaller bank and having a good relationship is you go in, you sit down, you talk to the banker, you tell the banker what you need. Because of the relationship, of course, you got decent credit. But, man, you can get an answer the same day right then, boom, you're done. And it's not a whole lot of red tape because of the relationship and because of them being smaller. So they don't have to go through this whole other department that has no relationship with you. And then they're just looking at numbers and if it's a mathematical problem that makes sense to them or not. So, but the smaller bank, man, they loving on you because of the relationship. because I'm talking to the banker, and a lot of times they won't tell you, but the actual banker you talking to has enough power to make the decision right there to just give you the loan.
Yep.
Because with the smaller bank. So just food for thought.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that sentiment at all. Having come from large bank to smaller local bank as well, but one thing to understand about that also is the larger banks, right? They are picky and choosy about what kind of loans they are doing and what they're doing, because that's what got them to there. And I want the audience to our listeners to kind of understand that mindset when they're thinking like, well, my bank doesn't do this, so they won't do that. Well, a bank is money manager. So when you think of, well, they didn't do this type of loan, let's say a personal loan, which is a more riskier, unsecured type loan, there's no collateral to come after. Yeah, but that's also what got banks in trouble, right? When we're talking about banks failing, those are the banks that are typically doing the riskier type loans. So when you have a bank that doesn't do those risky type loans, that also should lead to your comfortability level of, I'm confident in my bank. I'm confident in them not failing because they are managing money properly, theirs and mine, right? I understand the frustration from the customer's aspect. I can't get my loan at my bank, and that used to frustrate me a lot. Being with one of the larger banks is a lot of the loan types that our clients were looking for, we didn't do. And I would expect that if I bank somewhere, I can come to you for that type of loan. But that is the difference between larger and smaller. So they each have their benefits.
And that goes into customer service. Like reality, like when you're going to look for anything in life, it's a relationship that, you know what I'm saying? When I meet you, I'm gonna determine what I do or how I do business with whatever entity predicated upon the person that's in front of me. So if you go into a place, man, and you don't feel comfortable with a relationship, you just don't feel that happening, then that's when you exit stage left, because you owe them nothing. Right. But if you go into a bank, man, and they meet you, greet you with a smile, and they loving on you, and they want your business, that's the kind of bank you might want to sit in and then understand what they have to offer, and then read their mission statement, because their mission statement says a lot. So you want to attach yourself to them and build that relationship, because you need that relationship. Trust factor, knowing that somebody got your back, knowing that you know somebody that you can sit down and talk with personally and have that conversation that you need to get some knowledge that you might not understand or get the right questions. And one of the biggest questions I would encourage anybody to always ask when you go into the bank, man, what kind of fees are attached to whatever you're trying to give me?
Absolutely.
Like
fully understanding what you're getting yourself
have to
into.
ask that question, like, dang, talk to me about the fees.
Yep. And typically when it comes to fees, I mean, those are universal across small. They might be a different amount, but they're universal for the same things. But I could not have said that any better, James, is the relationship is key, because that's one of the things we're doing with this show is getting out education and awareness. But we can't answer every question for you in 30 minutes. And actually, we're getting close to that time. And I haven't even begun to talk about most of the stuff I wanted to talk about today. So we can do another probably 2 episodes off this subject as we're going along to address some of these questions. But build a relationship with your banker, right? And I understand you walk in, you may not get the best banker at that time. Some of us love our jobs, some of us don't, some of us are new, some of us more experienced. You never know. But that would also be when we're shopping around banks is, did that person that you met with today, did they seem knowledgeable? Is that somebody you could trust, because you're entrusting them with your money and you're entrusting them with educating you properly on your finances. So build that relationship.
I have a question. This is great that we have this platform to educate our viewers and listening audience. But let's say somebody wanted a neutral person to sit down and talk about their finances, not necessarily invest, but just to get an understanding. We only come on weekly in the mornings, but can you direct us to who can we sit down to educate us on banking and what to do with our money? How do we apply for loans? Where can I go for grant money? You know, just different things that is a neutral individual. Who do they go to?
Dr. Financial.
Financial.
He's right here.
So that's a great
So
question,
a
right?
finance investor or something like that?
Well, we also got to look at, depending on who we're trying to talk to and, are they charging costs and things like that. I think that's a lot of people's hesitations is if I call this person, they want to charge me money, right? So I'd be more than happy to put my information, in
That's great. That's awesome.
the body of the videos and everything that's out there. I'm sure Chris would as well.
Yeah, because it really makes
but
it matter
ultimately,
what your goals are.
Yeah,
So.
finding somebody that can be, I think we were talking, I heard on one of your shows, I don't know if it was one last night or not, but mentors, right? Who is our financial mentor?
Right.
Right. make sure that financial mentor is somebody that has experience, that's good with their finances, but find that person as well if you don't have somebody at the bank that you trust or you can go to for those answers. But I really think that that's one of the key things when we're talking about shopping banks and finding one, is finding that key person. And I'm sure you will with every bank. It's just,
Try and
maybe you got to
find
look
it.
around and find that, because you need to be able to trust it. But
And I just want to add 10 seconds is one of our watchers talked about, make sure you involve your kids too, take your kids into the bank with you when you go talk to the banker. Because most kids today don't even go inside of a bank.
is-
They're, because everything's done online, they hardly go through a drive-through anymore at the
Right.
bank. So take your kids into that bank so they're not scared of what's going on inside of there.
That's really
absolutely.
good.
So once again, our time went very, very quickly today on
Too
this
quick.
subject. I didn't even begin to jump into the things
It's
I wanted to
awesome.
talk about. So we'll have to, come back to this topic again, which ultimately we're going to go through this series and touch on a few topics. But that's where I want this show to grow. I'm sure, James, you want this show to grow as well, is to getting more in depth and getting that the listener feedback, right? So when
Yes.
you're asking where can they go, I would love to see this show turn into somebody calls in and say, I would love to be on your show. I want to come in, help educate me. Let me ask you some of those questions, and we can do it live right here, in
Absolutely.
front of our audience, that maybe questions we're not thinking of, real life situations, we can help them, and there's other people out there just like them. So I would love to see this show go there.
And before you close out, Ryan, man, I would love if you would just reiterate the main points of our conversation today, like from the relationship aspect to being picky when you're going to find a bank. So if you would just share or close us out with reiterating, man, the significance and the importance for everybody to be careful and to be intentional
Yep.
when they're going to find a bank or continue to stay with the bank. And if you've been with the bank for a long time, then you need to go into that bank, sit down with one of the bankers and ask, man, what kind of fees are attached to my account?
Yep.
What are the interest rates that I'm getting on my dollars? I don't care if they're small dollars. If your money's sitting and it's growing small, slowly, then make sure it's sitting in the right place. Talk to somebody that has the knowledge, like my guy Chris said next to me, that can show you what to do with your money, no matter how small it is. So if you could reiterate that, I sure would appreciate
Yeah, and
it.
on that note, believe it or not, interest rates are actually paying something now. They haven't for many, many years. Not a tremendous amount, but there are options out there to make money on the money in your account. It hasn't been that way for a long, long time. So to kind of reiterate, what I took away from this show is I want our listeners to understand the banks. I think our mistrust comes from a place of just misunderstanding, right? Sit down, listen. Let's get to a place of understanding. What's the bank's responsibilities and what is your responsibility? If we understand that, we don't automatically go in with a negative mindset that they're just here to take my money, right? We're here to help your money and protect your money and let the bankers help it grow. And then also the importance of shopping around, because there's not just one bank that's great for everybody. If there was, we wouldn't be the city of
Right.
banks like most metropolitan cities. Banks are on every corner, right? If they were all the same, some of them wouldn't be here, right? So different banks specialize in different things, different types of accounts. Shop around, find the best type of account for you. And then, as James said, get a full understanding when you're doing that of, the bank, get an understanding of the person that you're dealing with. Can you trust this person? Is this somebody that you're connecting with? And what fees go into this? And then try and utilize, that individual that you're build that relationship, right? If you have an issue, you have a fee, call that person. You're going to get further by having a relationship with somebody than randomly calling somebody that you've never met. They've never met you on the phone. Then you're just upset talking about, you guys charged me the fee. It's not my fault, right? There's some responsibility that accept and just listen and understand. And I'm sure that was my experience. We had no problems where I come from is, refunding fees to an extent, but also accepting some responsibility, helping to educate on why this happened and what we can do to not have this happen again, because it can't refund the fees every single time, or else the bad habits continue.
Yes.
Right. So in closing out, I think that's a good place to stop. I didn't have a quote today, but I wanted to kind of put some humor into this. So, got a joke for you here today.
Uh-oh.
When you have a secret, it's best not to tell the bank. Anybody know why?
Because they might steal it.
Terrible mindset, James. Terrible mindset. Chris, you want to guess?
No idea.
No clue.
They have a lot of tellers.
Wow.
Yeah.
Awesome.
That makes sense.
One of those dad jokes out there.
Yeah,
that
I was
daughter
gonna say
can't
that's a dad
stand.
joke.
Yes. I
Happy
do dad
Mother's
jokes
Day
to
with
my
the dad
daughter
joke.
every day. So
Mothers will enjoy that.
yes. So once again, thank you to our guests for being here today. Most importantly,
Thank
our
you.
listeners out there. Once again, we're just getting started with this, and hopefully, our message, continues to grow. Once again, you can help us by continuing that message, by subscribing, liking, and sharing our videos. Also, if you haven't seen our first video, the financial literacy, please go back and watch that. Tell the family, get them involved as well. But once again, we'll be back next week, same time. You want me to read this?
Your quote.
We cannot be separated in interest or divided in purpose. We stand together until the end.
Right.
Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Awesome. So join us next week, same time, where we're going to touch on credit, okay, and the importance of understanding your credit as well, and managing that properly, and how that can lead to our financial freedom. So thank you again for joining us. We'll see you next week.
Our Nutri Voices.
Peace.
Next Wednesday.